Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
It's a new week, a new Family Brand podcast episode. Chris and Melissa here. And Chris said, hey, I know what we want to talk about today. He didn't really tell me what we're talking about today. He just said it's about communication, but he said he just got off of a coaching call with his clients in the Possibility Co. And he's like, we have to talk about this on the podcast. So I'm going to let him take the lead. Honestly, I don't even know what we're talking about, but I know it's going to be good because it's Chris and everything that he says is brilliant. And then I'll jump in and we'll jive here on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. It's a 5-word phrase that I think might be the most powerful 5-word phrase in all of communication. And today we were talking about it in the context of sales. So at the Possibility Company, we have a weekly call every Tuesday for our entire community. We call it the Possibility Collective. And I led today's call, and it was about sales. That was the focus of today's group call. And I asked all of them at the beginning, what do you think is the most powerful phrase in all of selling? And everyone shared their ideas. And I said, okay, it's a 5-word phrase. And then people shared some other ideas. And I don't have any way to prove this. I believe it's the most powerful 5-word phrase in all of selling. And I think it's one of the most, if not the most powerful phrase in just communication in general, and is tell me more about that. And I think sometimes our tendency in communication between a significant other, with our children, with team members, in a sales conversation, if someone will tell us something that is really either insightful, it's telling what they just said, it's profound, and we just gloss right over it. And we either do a few things. Someone will tell us something really insightful, profound, revealing, and we either start trying to solve it immediately and jump into solution mode, or we're just like, oh, okay, awesome. And then we jump to the next thing. The opportunity is to dig through that to get to what's really going on. And maybe most importantly, it's the digging through whatever they said that has them really feel seen, heard, listened to. So often, so many times someone will say something to us. And again, our initial tendency most times as human beings is not to inquire further. It's to solve, it's to combat, it's to dispute. And we just miss so much of what's possible. And if someone said something to us and we said, tell me more about that, I've never in the history of my life in communication with Melissa or my kids, and there's been plenty of times I've gotten it wrong. I've never in the history of communication with anyone and or in sales, and I've done lots of sales, I've never said, tell me more about that, and had another human being say, no, I won't tell you any more about that. Mm-hmm. Every single time I say, tell me more about that, guess what they do? They tell me more about that, but they go deeper on it, and it gets more insightful. It gets more impactful. And I might say to someone, tell me more about that 3 or 4 or 5 times in a row in like a sales situation. And I've never had anyone else also say like, wow, you're asking me, you keep saying that. They don't even realize it. It actually feels so amazing to be like, wow, there's another human being who actually wants to know, who's actually interested in like digging into what I'm saying. My temptation is to fix and to solve, especially with, I know with Melissa, with our kids. And if I can refrain from that, no matter what they say to me, even if I don't like hearing it, even if I feel triggered by it, even if I feel threatened by it, or even if I have the solution, I have the answer immediately, that's one of the least useful things I can do is to react, get triggered, or give the answer. it's to actually inquire further. Tell me more about that. Because what I found is not only do I really get to what it is they're actually trying to say, and not only do they feel really heard and seen, sometimes what people say to us initially, they're trying to work it out still themselves. And by asking them to tell you more about that, it gives them an opportunity to inquire and kind of be like, yeah, what am I trying to say? What is really going on here? Sometimes they just need someone to like ask them, tell me more, say that they just need someone to tell me more about that enough times to like, they'll work it out a lot of times themselves and come up with their own answer, coming up with their own conclusion. And I heard this one time in sales that until that person says it, it isn't real for them. Like they have to hear themselves say out loud what it is that's really going on. Because you might know the answer and you could give it to them all day long, but until they hear themselves say it, it isn't real for them. And Melissa and I have talked about this a lot because we've really struggled with this at times in our marriage where I'll share feedback or she'll share feedback. And the temptation is like, well, I know you brought this up about me, but you do this too. And it's like, and the few times I can remember that when Melissa shares feedback with me, if I can go, oh, tell me more about that. And then a follow-up question that I sometimes will interject in there as well is like, how does that feel for you? Most people are just dying to be heard. Most people are just dying to like really have the opportunity to open up and share what's really going on. And sometimes they need some help getting out of them what's really going on. So tell me more about that. It's just dawned on me. I've used it a lot, but as I've been teaching it recently to some clients and as we had a conversation around it today, it just is so effective. And whether you use that phrase or not, the idea is when someone says something to us, our children bring something to us, our spouse, our whoever it is, do we immediately go into defense mode? Do we immediately get triggered? Do we immediately try to start solving it? Which I don't think any of those are the most effective. I think whatever they say to us, it's like, well, let's dig in here and keep digging until we find out what's really going on for them.
I think sometimes for me, I don't even know what's going on beneath that. And it really would take, that's why I love journaling actually. It's because sometimes I'll think that this thing is going on and I start journaling and I'm like, oh, it's actually 3 more layers deeper than that, which I actually did that to you recently. I can't even remember exactly what happened, but I thought I was frustrated about this one thing, but then I went to journaling and I was like, oh, it's actually this thing about me turning 40 that was happening like inside of my head. That had nothing to do with him, but I was like projecting it onto Chris, but I didn't even realize it until I took a minute. For me, it was journaling, but I could see how asking this question could help you get to the root of like, what is actually going on? And it doesn't even have to be about, not like, why am I upset, but like, how do I really feel about this thing? Or what next direction do I want to take? Sometimes talking through it, I think really helps.
Yeah, because if someone is struggling with something, I know when I'm struggling with something, my natural inclination isn't, hey, I'm struggling with something. Let me pause and really reflect and dig in and see what's going on here. It's just on the surface for me. And I'm like, no, this is what I'm struggling with. And this is what's going on. But if someone would show up for me in that moment and be like, hey, yeah, tell me more about that. That in that moment, just that one phrase causes me to have to actually go in and be like, huh, what? And the more they'll say, tell me more about that. And how does that make you feel? And like, when that happens, like, I might actually dig down to like the solution without even having to get like advice from someone or have to get the feedback and I think we rob people a lot of times. I know I do. I rob people of coming to the conclusion themselves, which is the most profound thing to do by like giving them the answer. Cause I feel like, oh, I know the answer. I could solve this or I could fix this. And a lot of times I can't. And I'm going to share something with you about sales that I think you could really apply though to every area of your life. I started coming to realize and believe that in sales, whatever someone's initial objection is, you never want to try and solve their initial objection because it's likely not the real objection. It's just what's on the surface for them. Kind of like with Melissa the other day. She's like, I thought it was this. And then as I dug in more, it was this. So you might be trying to solve an objection that actually isn't even their objection. And most people, their initial objection, I actually call it more, it's just their reaction. It's not even an objection. It's just they're just reacting to like, so like, let's say you're trying to sell someone something and you offer it. You're like, hey, do you want to buy this? Whatever they initially object with, that's just their reaction. So it would be really faulty to try to start digging through that to solve it. Meaning like, well, what about this? Or you're not seeing the value of that.
Like, give a real example of like, what's a common something that someone
Well,
will
what's something you face a lot when selling family brands, sometimes to families? What will be one of their objections?
we're too busy right now.
Yeah. So the mistake would be, I'm like, well, let me tell you why our program is so efficiently designed and laid out for families and doesn't take a lot of time. And like, in my experience of sales, that would be like a really big mistake. We're just so busy right now. Yeah. Tell me more about that.
All my kids are in sports right now, and every evening is filled with running them places. And I just don't know where or how we'd find the time to do something else.
Yeah. So like, what's that like for you to feel like I don't have any time to do anything else?
It feels like a little prison of sorts, a prison of my own making. And I feel like we're just kind of running ourselves ragged a bit with no real, I mean, we have an intention that our kids are being active and playing sports, but no real intention beyond that.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
I would like to have more intentional time together with them than just driving one or two kids here or there,
Why?
because I think that that's important for families to spend time together, especially in a busy world.
But like, why is that so important to you though? I mean, yes, obviously I get why it's important to spend time together in a busy world, but like, what is that going to create for you?
I think more connection, deeper relationships, more fun.
So well, I could keep going on with this, but do you see how much more you told me?
Mhm.
Like, I'm in a prison of my own making. Like
More
on
than
this,
just like, nope, we're too busy.
yeah, nope, we're too busy. And it's like, so, okay, teenager one,
Yeah, let's do teenager on. I'm trying to think of something that's actually relevant.
chores or things you ask them to do, or
Our kids, our big kids, our teenagers are homeschooling right now, and we've been having some discussions around homeschooling. Maybe let's just talk about homeschooling. So I would say maybe I
you
would
just say, I'm struggling with my schedule. Or I'm struggling with school.
yeah, I'm struggling with my schedule. I'm struggling with school. I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
I just feel confused and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to reach out to my teacher and I don't know what my grades are. I'm just a little confused with all of it.
Yeah. So what would support look like for you?
I don't know. Maybe you could like sit down and look at it with me. Help me find out what my grades are and how to talk to my teacher.
Is that important to you?
I feel like it should be.
Yeah. Like, is homeschooling like something you really like want to do? And is it something you're enjoying doing?
I want to do it, but I'm not enjoying it.
Hmm. Why do you want to do it?
I'm really trying to channel our children right now. I like that I would have more time freedom.
Hmm.
I could have time to go to the gym or work a little bit at my job and still go to school.
So you know that you want to do it for those reasons of like time and freedom and just more control over your schedule. So what are you currently not enjoying about it?
It feels confusing and I'm not clear on what I'm supposed to be doing every day.
What do you mean?
Maybe it's my schedule. Like I know I made a schedule for school, but I don't know. It's just hard for me to follow.
Hmm. So it's actually, so it sounds like it's more about having a schedule that you could follow that you feel like you could really commit to.
Yeah, and feel good about it. Because I don't, at the end of the day, some days don't feel good about how I spend my time. I don't know you, as my parents, that you sometimes wish I would spend my time differently.
So you know you want to homeschool because you love the freedom. You know that you want to feel good about how you spend your time at the end of the day. Do you feel like the current schedule you've written out is working for you and that you like it?
No, it's not really working.
Okay, we'll save you guys the, and who knows, like if you're ever, it doesn't mean in every single one of these, it's like, oh, you're going to land on but it's just the power of like being curious and digging in more. Tell me more about that. What's that like? Why is that important to you? And I just feel like we leave so much, like there's so much left on the table. There's so much meat left on the bone in most conversations because we just don't dig. And sometimes they're offering up what I call like conversational gold. And it's so easy to miss it. And look, that doesn't mean that every little thing they offer up and we say, tell me more about that. We might dig a little and find there's nothing there, but I would rather dig and realize there's nothing there than not dig and like miss out on something, but my experience most often is you don't need to ask a ton of questions about a lot of things. You want to ask a lot of questions about like one or two things and dig and dig and dig. It's in the depth. Like going deep is where you get to this just gold of like possibility, maybe potential solutions. And even in that scenario right there, I think if, with Melissa and role playing one of our kids, I'm trying to help our child come to the conclusion themselves that I think it's that my schedule doesn't work for me. Because I probably, as a parent, from my vantage point, might know that going into the conversation. But if I go to one of my kids like, hey, your schedule really doesn't work for you, and this isn't working, and this isn't working, it's like, then I'm just harping on them. But if I can guide them with some questions to allow them to come to a conclusion, it's just so much more powerful. And man, if you want to really have your relationship work communication wise, like even in your marriage, if your spouse comes to you with something that's frustrating for them about you or something you've done to upset them, way easier said than done, what I'm about to say. But if you can resist the urge to be defensive and resist the urge to fire back or resist the urge to solve and go, tell me more about that. That one phrase just bought you so much goodwill and softening in the conversation. And then the more you continue to do it, hey, how does that make you feel? And what's that like for you? But I've just found that my go-to, if I ask a company, hey, what's a big goal for you right now? Like in a sales conversation, they tell me, my first is always like, yeah, tell me more about that. And then I decide where to take it from there. Or if they like, oh, we just have this massive challenge we're trying to overcome right now in our organization. Tell me more about that. And I don't have a place to get with it. Like I'm not trying to lead them to like with Melissa or my kids or our clients. We're not asking these questions to lead them into a trap. It's like, oh, I gotcha. We're just trying to lead them to a place of like some more clarity and possibility and helping them say out loud what really is going on.
I think the place where I feel like, at least immediately, this would be the most effective is when I find myself wanting to get maybe upset or frustrated with something that's happening or something that one of my kids is doing, instead of or jumping to conclusions or jumping to solutions for them, like giving them solutions, this would be the place to interject this question. Tell me more about that. Yeah, because I could see, we had a conversation last night with our two teenage boys that basically was the exact conversation that we just had on the podcast. And I feel like in hindsight, you and I could have done a better job of asking more questions because I think we were just getting so frustrated. But I think at the root of it, it's like, how can we understand them better, understand where they're coming from, offer them more support and more understanding?
Totally. And sometimes it's infuriating in so many domains of our life when you're dealing with another person and you're like, how can you not see this? But that's a really interesting thought or thing to say. How can you not see this? That is your first clue that they can't see it. If they could see it, they would. And there's not going to be any usefulness in us being operating from this place of how can you not see this? Instead, it's like, how can I maybe help them see this? Or how could I see what they're seeing? Maybe that's even more powerful. How could I understand what's going on for them over there?
Yeah, or maybe the thing to be seen isn't the thing that you think it is. Maybe it's something completely different, but you can help facilitate that arrival at that place.
But you'll never get I feel like a lot of times it's like this, you're operating from your context, they're operating from their context. And it's like, we're arguing and battling over trying to get the other person to see it our way. And we do that through well, you do this or well, you should be doing this and solving, getting triggered, getting defensive. But if one person in that can have the wisdom, the love, the patience, the maturity, whatever you want to call it, to be hey, you stay where you're at. I'm just going to come over and sit next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to show me what you're seeing. Help me understand how you're seeing this. Help me understand what you're looking at. Help me understand. And you only can do that through questions. You're not sitting next to them, sitting alongside them until you're hey, thank you for sharing that. Tell me more about that. Oh, wow. The fat. So what's that like for you? So what is important to you around this? What isn't working right now? What do you want? If you could wave a magic wand and create anything, what is that?
These are good one-liners.
And it's just, oh yeah, but it's operating from this. And I have to fight the temptation of like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm asking you these questions because I'm going to lead you to my answer. It's like, no, it's not even that. It's like, it's kind of this idea of no place to get. I have no place to get with these questions other than to connect with you. I have no place to get with these questions other than to really try and see how you're seeing it. Because I promise you that if you're ever in a relationship with someone and you're like, how could you possibly see it that way? Guess what they're thinking about you? The exact same thing. They're like, how could you possibly see it that way? And that's what's so fascinating about us as human beings is like, from our context, from our vantage point, we're always right. And so I think I also want to point out the times where I find that this is the most difficult for me. If someone comes to me and asking for my advice, or we're just having a casual conversation, much easier for me to be like, oh, tell me more about that. If one of my kids comes to me like kind of with some contention or some like heat, or Melissa comes at me with some like, hey, feedback around something I did wrong.
Which I would never do.
Yeah, never. That's hypothetical. Let's pretend there's a couple, a friend of ours. That's when it requires the most work to actually for me to operate this way. Because like, yeah, someone comes and attacks me, or I feel like comes at me. Yeah, I want to defend myself. I want to point out what they're doing wrong. I want to get triggered. And I have found that you can de-escalate something so quickly if you can stay calm. Even though you might not be calm on the inside, but on the outside, you can just be like, yeah, thank you for the feedback. Like, tell me more about that. Wow, thanks for sharing that with me. What's that like for you? You can like change demeanor, behavior, like sometimes instantly. And so, yeah, that's why I wanted to, and I share all of this, not from a place of like perfected it. I share it from a place of like failing at it and being in it and
on the journey.
Yeah, on the journey of trying to be a better demonstration of this. But you can literally create miracles with this. I've found if we can, yeah.
So I think that's your homework for today. Those five little magic words. Tell me more about that. See if you can infuse that into a conversation this week with anyone. It doesn't have to be your family even. See what comes up. Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Family Brand Podcast. But wait, before you go, I want to give you something. It's something I stole out of our Family Brand Academy because I thought it would make a big difference for you, and I want you to have it for free, no strings attached. It's how we run our family meetings, and not just our family meetings that we have every week, but also our family check-ins, which is the system we've developed for how to connect with our kids and each other, Chris and I, every single week. And we've had some great outcomes with this. Not only have we, but a lot of families that have implemented this have as well. Actually, life-changing outcomes, if I'm being honest. You'll definitely want to get this. Go get your copy at familybrand.com/meeting, and we will catch you next time.